Well, the crypto market has had quite a rough day today as we started the day off pretty green, and then over the last couple hours, things kind of got a little bit red. Now, throughout all of this volatility, a lot of people are wondering what in the world is going on, what's starting to cause people's emotion to shifts, and much more. And so, what I wanted to do was kind of talk about some of the data that were released today and some of the crypto news that we saw as well, that is somewhat causing a little bit of uncertainty across the majority of the market. Now, what we can see here is that if we actually head over to crypto bubbles, you can see what I mean, right? Some cryptos are doing good, some cryptos are not doing so good. And because of this kind of imbalance, I want to talk about why we're seeing the market so odd today. It looks like Christmas, right? So much green and so much red, and kind of what this means going forward. Now, the primary reason as to why we are seeing the green first, let's talk about the green, is because we actually got some pretty good news today and some pretty solid data from the economy. The first piece of news that we got was, of course, that World Liberty Financial has continued to purchase more and more Ethereum. Now, if you don't know who World Liberty Financial is, this is Donald Trump's company, or a company at least somewhat owned by Donald Trump, who, of course, has been going absolutely nuts buying Ethereum. You can see the breakdown of this portfolio right now. Yes, they have some wrapped Bitcoin, and yes, they have some TRX, but the majority of their holdings are sat there in Ethereum, absolutely stacking it, buying tens of millions of dollars of Ethereum at a time, which is just absolutely nuts. Now, as this has been happening, what we actually did see also yesterday was that the US SEC has approved Bitwise combined Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF, which is going to allow Bitwise to start offering this service or product to their clients, in which they can start investing not only just into Bitcoin through their ETF, but there's also the ability to start adding Ethereum into the mix as well, which is fantastic news, right? I've told you all pretty consistently, I think we're in an institution-based cycle right now. And so the fact that there is the opportunity for institutions to start gathering and scooping up a little Ethereum should definitely cause a little bit more of inflows than we've been seeing recently. Now, as this has also been happening, there have been some ramblings and some people kind of talking behind the scenes that there's a possible Dogecoin ETF approval on the way as well. Now, although I don't know how credible this is, it could make some sense, but at the end of the day, the news itself is what kind of has some people pretty excited. And what you'll come to recognize is the majority of this excitement is centered around Ethereum. You got institutions buying Ethereum, Bitwise including Ethereum. You got Dogecoin, which is launched on Ethereum, right? And that's why you're starting to see a lot of green. Because if you actually just look at what is going on here on chain, you'll start to recognize that the majority of these cryptos leading the charge are Ethereum-based cryptos, such as LDO, such as something like Pepe down here at 6.5%. Such as something like Floki right here at 6.6%. Dexy had a much better morning this morning, but it was pumping this morning as well. In which, you can start to kind of see the picture that I'm painting, where the majority of the market is in the red, but some of these Ethereum-based cryptos are doing well because of the good news that we've been seeing, especially from an institutional perspective. Now, some of you may not look at that as good news. I personally do think it is, especially for this run, at least. I am now pretty convinced that we are in what's going to be considered to be the institution cycle when we look back at this cycle in history. I think what's going to happen is that the majority of this cycle's positives and negatives will be driven by institutions and not so much retail. I think this is going to be the first institutionally driven cycle that crypto's ever seen before. And it already has been realistically. And so because of that, obviously paying attention to what institutions are doing is very important. And whenever you start to see ETFs starting to make moves, and when you start to see something like World Liberty Financial making moves, you can't ignore it. And so people aren't ignoring it. And so not only are they buying Ethereum, but they're also buying some other Ethereum-backed cryptos, which I think is a pretty smart move. Now, in addition to this, of what we're seeing right here, just kind of getting the market moving and grooving. What we're also seeing is that we did get some economic data today. So what we got today was actually PCE data. Now, if you don't know what PCE data is, I can actually head over here. What you can see is that PCE data is the Personal Consumption's Expenditure Price Index. And quite simply what it is it is the tool that the Fed prefers to use when they're monitoring inflation. So they love to use this tool to kind of get an idea if inflation's going up or if inflation's going down. Well, what we got today was actually that inflation data came in exactly as you would expect. Everybody was expecting that there would be a bit of a 2.8% increase, and well, that is what it's been. It came in at expected. Now, things coming in as expected are inherently bullish in my opinion, because there are not going to be any shocks to the market. You have three options. Option number one is you have a good surprise. Option number two is nothing surprising happens. Option number three is a bad surprise happens. And so I'm honestly always okay with having a no surprise whatsoever rather than the risk of having a bad surprise, right? Which would be inflation going up a lot, and obviously that would spook the market a ton. And so we did get this PCE data coming in, just showing that, right? Inflation is still sticky, so we're still in a bit of a weird spot right here. We're definitely in a spot where the Fed is probably going to continue to maintain these interest rates in which they're at right now to try to get this inflation data down, but it's not getting worse. Things aren't getting out of control, even though we are starting to see some movements throughout the economy, and things are still rather similarly, similar to where they've been. So, of course, because of that, hey, the market's just kind of responding as you would expect. Some things up, some things down, but not a lot of movement in either direction. Now, one of the things though, because these have all been a little bit more positive or neutral things, which have caused some of these green bubbles. One of the reasons why we are seeing some red bubbles across the crypto market and even the stock market is because there is some growing uncertainty now as a result of things like tariffs. So what we know is that Donald Trump is, this is something we actually talked about on the live stream earlier, but Donald Trump is threatening, basically, to add a 25% tariff to Mexico and Canada on all imports. So what that means is that things would get substantially more expensive in the sense that them trying to import things into the United States would get way more expensive, and that can obviously be somewhat problematic for the majority of people here. Right? Because you got to think about it. If you have a car manufacturer and certain parts you get from Mexico, and then it becomes more expensive to get them from Mexico, now we're in a spot where we're actually going to be in a bit of a pickle because now we're going to start to see prices go up because the cost of importing these goods is going to go up. And then obviously, who pays the price for that? The everyday person. And so because all of these things are transpiring with tariffs and because the Fed is just sitting back waiting and watching to make a move once they see what happens here, some people are starting to grow a little bit concerned. Like if Trump does this and we start to see inflation climbing as a result of it, will the Fed have to go in and reduce the amount of interest rate cuts they're expecting to do this year even more? Or will they have to raise interest rates, right? And it's starting to put a little uncertainty on the market. Now, it's not a ton of uncertainty. It's not like this huge big ordeal. It's not this huge big event because no one's really that concerned about it, but it is enough to spook people at least a little bit into taking a little bit of profit off the table or just canceling out some of the losses that they have already. Because again, you can't see the VOO or the stock market, although it did fall today, it's still only down 0.20%. So it's not like it nosedived. It just erased some of the gains that were made because people are getting a little bit worried about how things are playing out, of course, with Trump's administration, how the Fed will respond, how that will impact the economy, and much more. But for the most part, I would say today is a rather strong day. I would say today is a rather good day for crypto, right? You're seeing some progression here. People are buying, these institutions are starting to turn their sights towards Ethereum, which could open the door for other altcoins. And although I personally am not a huge fan of Ethereum myself, this is a good sign. I do hold a bag of Ethereum. As a matter of fact, I actually did go in and buy a little more Ethereum today. I said something is brewing with Ethereum. I said Trump's administration is loading their boats right now. Wells are accumulating. ETH ecosystem is pumping. We can see that ETH price just gave us the first signs of a breakout. And so I said, look, I'm taking a gamble here, and I made my first large dollar cost average of the year into ETH. I increased my total Ethereum bag by 15% at around 33.58, which is a little bit lower than where we are right now. Yeah, we're currently at 33.24, so it has stayed rather the same. Now, some of you may say, well, Tyler, Ethereum's only up 2.3% today. It didn't break out, and that's actually not particularly true. What we can see here is that Ethereum had been trapped within a descending channel for a while, and it's now today, as a result of the pump that we saw this morning, broken above that channel and is currently trying to back test and hold support above that channel. So Ethereum is giving us the first signs of a macro breakout, and if this back test, in which it tries to flip this resistance zone into a support zone, is successful, yeah, I think there's a chance that we could start to see ETH performing better than it has been over the last few weeks and a few months, and maybe even pursuing, $4,000 or $5,000 over the long term. It's not going to be immediate, but over the long term. And remember, my primary thesis here is that we are in an institution-based cycle. And so what institutions do, we should probably pay attention to. And they're obviously turning their sights onto Ethereum, thinking that there's a lot of potential here, especially as things like ETFs and stuff start to get approved. And so because of that, not a terrible day in crypto, obviously a bit of a back and forth day. Some things green, some things red. But for the most part, the majority of this uncertainty just comes from not knowing what's happening in the economy. And that's not a real big impact on crypto. That's just people selling because they're a little bit fragile, in my opinion. And so not a terrible day, not a great day, a pretty break-even day, a good day for the Ethereum ecosystem. And I would say a day that's good for the Ethereum ecosystem is good for altcoins, and a day that's good for altcoins is good for me. And so with that in mind, if you do want to see things like this, in which I do talk a little bit about, what I'm buying and selling and much more, you can check out the school, which is linked down below. Our goal at the school is very simple. We take crypto investors like yourselves and we give you courses and classes and workshops and much more more to help you define your strategies. Because when you refine those strategies, you can make real good gains. And I'm not talking about little gains, I'm talking about big gains. Just today, on a day like today, which hasn't been that great, you can see 80%, 60%, 100%, 80%, 100%, 20%, 25%, 177%. And the gains go on and on because this community knows how to turn a strategy into real life gains. And if you want to be a part of the other 1,245 paying members in the community, you can check it out as down below for as little as $5 a month. And as I mentioned before, best part about it is you get your money back guaranteed if you don't enjoy it. And the last thing I will let you know is don't forget you only have 9 days left right now if you do want to take advantage of the 20% cashback bonus with BitUnix. If you deposit anywhere from $100 to $1,000, they're going to give you 20% back to trade. Meaning if you deposit $500, they'll give you $100 for you to trade completely for free. And whatever profit you make from that $100 is yours to keep. And there's a bunch of other trading rewards as well for you to check out down below. So feel free to go check out all that stuff down below. Kind of stay frosty today. This is a bit of a weird market, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and I would assume that's going to transpire to a lot of people getting liquidated on both sides of the coin. Tomorrow, I'll talk a little bit more about what's happening with liquidations and how I'm feeling about the broad market in general, but really wanted to just update you all on some of the news that we were seeing today and kind of just let you know how I'm feeling about it. But with that in mind, of course, I hope you guys did enjoy today's video, and I can't wait to see you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.